let's start by talking about this update from the Department of Workforce and Education. 60% of schools in our state already have some kind of phone policy in place. What's your reaction to that, and how important is it for that other 40% to get on board before next summer?
Yeah, we passed a law and said, hey, schools need to have a cell phone policy. We gave them until next July to comply, but 61% of school districts have already complied. Many of these policies include outright bans. Other of them have limited use times, maybe only at lunch, limited access to phones. But this is great news because 60% of the schools in the state are already on board with complying, and they can use, these other 40% can use the lessons that all of those schools have learned and copy those policies for their own use. And that's great news for the state of Ohio.
Lieutenant Governor, last week I went to a school. It was a charter school in the Columbus area, and they actually have a phone lockbox. So when kids get to school, they walk in, they have to put their phone in this lockbox, and it's there the whole day, and they get it once the day's over. And I asked their principal and their dean of students, what are some of the reasons why they felt this was, necessary for them, the best policy to keep it away from them the whole day? And they brought up something to me that you and I talk about this a lot, so it's not surprising, but to others it might be. They said this phone is a weapon, can be used as a weapon for kids. They can be bullying on there, using the phone to share information illegally. Can you talk about that aspect of these young kids, teenagers, using a cell phone as a weapon?
There's no doubt that students are struggling because of the bullying, the addiction, the interruptions, the intrusion, you name it. On a cell phone, smartphone these days, students are getting all kinds of messages. The algorithms from their social media apps are targeting them. I mean, really trying to addict them. Really, you get points or you get awarded for the number of times that you do it, and then the amount of time that you wait between the time you receive these notifications. So they've sort of gamified distracting you, and that's what's happening to kids. And it's really harmful during the school day for educational development. I mean, think about this. If you have your cell phone in your hand, you're studying something, and the next thing you look down and you got a notification, and then you've forgotten everything over here. You get interrupted. It may be somebody bullying you, and then you've lost your ability to focus in class. I ask you this as adults. How many times have you been in the middle of something and then you got a text and then you thought about that and then you completely forgot about the thing you were supposed to be focused on? It's even harder for kids because they lack the developmental tools to confront that. So we know it's harmful. We know that when you get cell phones out of schools, academic performance goes up, bullying goes down, mental health improves, culture in the school gets better. They are not helpful to helping in the academic environment. And the more we get them out of that environment, the better off we are.
There were some stats that I read about how many notifications kids are getting every day. And it's hundreds of notifications that these kids are getting on their phones, whether it's text or with those social media platforms. That was shocking to me. Is that shocking to you to hear how much interaction these kids are doing on phones every day?
Well, and that's the average. And for some kids, it's way higher than that. I don't know how you could possibly focus on other things in life. Remember, these devices and the apps on them are designed to addict you to the platform, which means distract you from the rest of life. That might be your friends, that might be your family, that might be your work in school. And one of the things that you always hear from the school principals is they say, when we banned cell phones, the biggest notice was that the lunchroom became loud again, because instead of kids just looking at their phone during lunch, they're talking to each other. They're being kids, developing those social skills. And yeah, it's a little louder, but that's great news because we see the addiction that occurs with cell phones, how harmful it is to kids, how disruptive it is to education. And we're trying to change it for the better by getting our schools to jump on board. And it's also worth noting that last week, the U.S. Department of Education said, hey, schools should really look at banning phones and coming up with policies. It's great to know that Ohio is one of the leaders in this. And I really value the fact that our educators, 61% of them, have already complied. And that is good news for all the kids in those schools.
I don't know how common this is, but we have heard from some parents who say, yeah, like my kid has to turn their phone in, but they got their hands on a burner phone and are turning their real phone in and keeping another phone, or vice versa. I mean, are you worried that kids will find their way around these new things that schools have in place?
So as long as we've been making rules, kids have been finding ways to get around those rules, right? That's part of growing up and what kids do. But for the most part, if you talk to the schools, it's really not a problem, because if they're the only one with the phone, who else are they talking to? They're not going to be talking to somebody else in their school. I guess they could be playing games or doing something else. But for the most part, these policies work, and there are consequences for kids if they break those rules. Just like there are for any other rules in school, this is going to work just fine for most schools and most kids.
What's your reaction to seeing that these platforms are now coming up with their own rules? I mean, I guess it's good to have rules in place, but you had pitched those initially.
So initially, when we tried to pass a law to put these restrictions in place on social media companies, they told us they couldn't do it. They resisted it. They sued us. They tried to stop us. But now they're using it as part of their marketing program. Why is that? Because we hit a nerve. We know, and parents know, and society knows that this is wrong to try to addict kids to the platform. There are harmful things happening to them. And I also think that eventually there's going to be liability for the social media companies if they don't do this. And so I think for all of those reasons, they've realized that they need to step up as it relates to children and begin to put some more parental controls in place. This is not enough, but it's a recognition and it's a start towards more responsible actions by the social media companies. But remember, they are trying to addict your children to these platforms. And you as parents need to step in and take control. You can take their phones and limit the amount of time that they are on it. You can put these codes in and make sure that they can't get around them. But you need to take those actions as a parent. If you're tired of your child seemingly being addicted to their devices, you need to intervene. We're doing this in schools, but there's nothing more important than an engaged parent to help address these issues.
Anything else that you want to add on this topic? Something I didn't ask about, you want to make sure we definitely hit on?
We know that excessive cell phone use with these apps are harmful. We know they're used for bullying. We know that they harm academic performance. Ohio's stepping in along with our schools to try to change that direction. There's nothing more powerful than parents in helping to implement this, but we are fighting back and we're beginning to show some progress.
And Lieutenant Governor, while I have you, I have to ask about plans in a possible run for governor looking ahead. Can you share any details with us about your plans?
All of my political plans for the future will be discussed in 2025, not in 2024. So it's not far away. We're almost at the new year. I'll talk about all of that when the time comes. But for now, we'll just finish the job here in the lame duck session for making sure that we're getting public policy done, enjoy the holidays with my family, and then we'll start in the new year discussing what the future of my public service goals are.